Have you ever wanted to see Dakota Johnson in Bridgerton? Well, this is the movie for you, just without the lovey-dovey stuff and the oh, and the oh my. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're diving right into Netflix's original film Persuasion, based on the Jane Austen novel of the same name. It drops on Netflix July 15th, but a huge thank you to Netflix for giving me the chance to watch this early for review. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of period piece dramas, but this cast definitely intrigued me, starting with Dakota Johnson as Anne Elliot, Cosmo Jarvis as Captain Wentworth, and Henry Golding as Mr. Elliot. It's also directed by Carrie Cracknell. Now, seriously, it was Henry Golding and Dakota Johnson that were my biggest draws for this film. Now, was the movie worth the watch from start to finish? Well, I'm going to answer that and so much more, but before we get into my review, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies, TV, and all the news in between. So if you do too, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on the bell, and hit the thumbs up button if you love period piece dramas like this, and let me know in the comments which Jane Austen novel and movie adaptation is your favorite. I don't know if I have a pick yet. I have to watch more of films that adapt her work. But anyway, let's get into what the movie is all about. 8 years after Anne Elliot was persuaded not to marry a dashing man of humble origins, they meet again. But will she seize her second chance at true love? Will she? Well, I mean, I know what happens, and I'm sure if you're watching this, you might know too. So you know what? Let's get into the positives, guys, and start off on an optimistic note, because there's a lot to like here in some regards, especially for fans of this genre. It does have a lot of Bridgerton vibes in the way that it is a period piece that is also very modern in its approach, because even though I haven't read the novel that this movie is based on, it was surprisingly a more modern adaptation when it comes to movies that, well, really adapt Jane Austen's work. There's lots of fourth wall breaking here. There's a ton of quirky candor that can appeal to older audiences, but also younger audiences as well. And I do think that at least this separates it from the other period piece dramas that I've seen in the past. So I enjoyed that aspect of Persuasion. And then there's also some really solid performances, beginning with Dakota Johnson as Anne Elliot. She plays the role well of a woman longing for her former lover that unfortunately got away due to family pressure. Maybe some of us can relate to that. I know sometimes in a way I can relate to family pressuring you to make decisions, but you know, sometimes you gotta just tell them no, but that's a discussion for another day. I really did feel like she was really the only character in the movie that had a lot of personality too. She's also the only character in the movie that breaks the fourth wall, and really we see this film through her eyes. And speaking of eyes, sometimes, guys, her side eyes to the camera made me laugh, so she was able to balance both the dramatic aspects of this role and also the more humorous moments as well. Now, I've always thought Dakota Johnson was a good actor, so it was nice to see her in this role, which she pretty much played well, all things considered. And another standout for me was Richard E. Grant as Anne Elliot's father. While he's definitely more of a supporting character, guys, Richard E. Grant chews up every scene that he's involved in. Fans new and old when it comes to Richard E. Grant will really appreciate this performance. I mean, if you loved what he did in Loki, I think you'll like what he did here, but just understand that it doesn't happen often. He's not in this movie a whole lot, but when he is, man, I was just captivated by his screen presence. And another actor that really took my attention was Nikki Amuka Bird as Lady Russell. She was one of the lone bright spots in M. Night Shyamalan's movie Old, and I thought that here she just continued to command the screen. She was really good at having these very down-to-earth conversations with Anne, and sometimes when she was involved in any scene, I really was like, dang, this is the standout. Lady Russell is a cool character in a way, and Lady Russell is a character portrayed very well by Nikki Amuka Bird, so she did a really nice job in this movie. And then there's the cinematography by Joe Anderson and the music by Stuart Earle. They both really understood the assignment, guys. The visuals were pretty, and I mean, you can tell they probably shot on location in a way. I don't know if you can really green screen some of that stuff, but the lighting was beautiful in some moments. I liked some of the wraparound shots and some of the wide angle shots to show exactly where Anne and her family and her, of course, lover or former lover, Captain Wentworth, where they were. So it was really cool to see the cinematography actually excel at kind of getting us into the film a little bit more. And speaking of getting immersed in the movie, man, the music, the score here by Stuart Earle was pretty good because it did what it needed to do in terms of playing up the melodrama. So think of Bridgerton just without the soundtrack. You know, you got more original music composition here in Persuasion, but yeah, Stuart Earle did a pretty good job. But that's about all I have for the positives, you guys. So let's get into the negatives. And when it comes to Persuasion, I think this movie does have a few that hold it back from being an incredibly enjoyable experience. The direction and the story itself was pretty questionable at times, and I didn't really understand some of the creative decisions, and maybe if we would have scaled back, it would have been a little bit better. The film just kind of goes in circles for a majority of the film and is trying to really build up this tension between Captain Wentworth and Elliot, because both of them, of course, they are ex-partners, and sometimes it finds its groove like in the second act, but it's short-lived. The cat and mouse game just gets old after a while between these two, and it's not the fault of the actors. I just think it's a very uninteresting plot. It's something predictable, cliche even, that we've seen before. I also did not like the decision to have Dakota Johnson break the fourth wall as often as she did. I was like, am I watching Deadpool if it were a period piece drama? I mean, it got excessive sometimes, especially in the beginning of the movie and towards the tail end. I mean, the film itself honestly is at its best when there is no fourth wall breaking, and I don't think that's a coincidence. A lot of immersion is broken whenever Dakota Johnson decides to speak to us, the audience, and there's even a big moment in the third act that was completely ruined by the decision to have her break the fourth wall. I just think on paper it might have sounded like a good idea, but breaking the fourth wall in this movie did not have the effect I think it intended to have on me. And even though there were some standout performances here, there are other actors that were just completely wasted in this film. And that starts with Henry Golding as Mr. Elliot. Listen, I was so excited for him in this movie because I do believe he's a solid actor, you guys. But they kind of introduce him in the most random and convenient way possible, and then you start to see some seeds of intrigue that are planted, and then after a while he's just reduced to a plot device. And that is so disappointing for an actor of his caliber to be used in such a minuscule way, and it almost makes me think, well, why even bring him on for this at all if that's the case? He definitely deserved better. And then you have Cosmo Jarvis as Captain Wentworth, and there's some potential here with this actor, but it feels like he was held back, and maybe the script asked him to do that as well. Cosmo Jarvis is just there sometimes. He's on screen, but he doesn't have much impact, and we know he's important because the story tells us he's important, but if we didn't have Dakota Johnson breaking the fourth wall and overly explaining her infatuation with Cosmo Jarvis's character, I mean, you couldn't really tell me that he was as important as he should have been. So overall, you guys, what do I really think of Persuasion? And I'll be honest, even though those negatives sound pretty harsh, the movie isn't terrible. I do feel like right in the middle of this film is where it's at its strongest, when you get the characters acting naturally, when there are important pauses in conversations and dead air to really feel the weight and gravity of certain situations. But then in other moments, you have so much fourth wall breaking that just destroys any sort of, I guess, stakes that this movie's trying to build up. Instead, we get a lot of comedic moments where it didn't really fit. There were some tonal clashes in scenes, and I do think that Persuasion sometimes is just playing it so safe to where it is bland and just meh. Dakota Johnson is good, and if you're a fan of her, I do think you'll enjoy what she does with the role, and we have some solid supporting characters here as well. But I just really think that this film could have been much better than it was, and unfortunately by the end I was kind of checking my watch. Seriously, this film could have been edited down a little bit more, but I get it. Yeah, guys, it's an adaptation of a Jane Austen novel. It's gonna have to be over an hour and a half anyway. So if I had to even rate Persuasion, guys, I'd probably give it like a 3 out of 5. Not the worst thing you'll watch on Netflix this week, but if you do check it out, again, let me know down below in the comments what you think of the film. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Are you kind of in the middle? And let me know what Dakota Johnson performance is your favorite. Which one really makes you think, oh heck yeah, she's got it? Because I could probably name 1 or 2. And guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and again, hit the big thumbs up button. It does a lot to help this video. And yes, guys, we got a big week coming up, okay? Next week is San Diego Comic-Con, so you know we're covering it on the channel. I won't be there, but I'll do my best to keep you guys informed. Alrighty, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch ye at the next screening. Get it? Ye, because I'm like speaking as if I were back in the times. Okay, don't throw tomatoes. Stop it. Put it down.